Hello, welcome everybody to another Divine Masculine Roundtable. Last time we talked about sacred sexuality, just sexuality in general. I definitely want to do a part two to that, but given the state of where we're at on our future history, I figured we go into the next segment, which is about manifestation. I know everybody here probably has their own, I know Halo has some pretty interesting stories himself, but everybody has their own manifestation stories and different techniques and things that they understood in order to achieve the things that they desire. So I want to talk about like personal manifestations, manifestation stories, but also how that relates on the macro level to the micro level, right? How do we scale that? How does that apply to the world at large that we're seeing? And how do we unite people through that concept of joint manifestation? So
Wow,
who
big
wants to?
topic.
Yeah.
It is a big topic. We're at this huge shift planetary wise, and we're at a transition point right now, unlike any other. And a lot of people are still divided, and they're divided on these ideals of what they think the world should look like in order to achieve the outcomes that they really want. So people are attached to that part of it. And I know from my personal manifestations, anytime I attach to a particular and think this is the way to get the outcome, it always actually draws me away from the outcome I'm really going for. So when I hone down and really focus on the particular outcome and get clear on what it is I'm really trying to achieve in the outcome, whether it be more peace, more happiness, greater sense of fulfillment, really putting my passion out there in the world. If I focus on other things that I think are going to get me there, it always draws me away from that thing that I'm really wanting to do. And I know in my own life, there's been things that I noticed, that when these ground rules were set, when a certain container was set, manifestations came easy, right? When I was in Iraq, I I was taken care of monetarily wise. I had hardly any other like stresses or obligations, as weird as that sound, being in a war zone. But because everything was so available, taken care of, anything that I played around with in that manifestation realm, it just happened like that. And when I came back to the States, I started noticing things that made it more difficult. There's all these thought forms and beliefs, then stresses and relationships and all these things that got in the way. And when I allowed that to kind of take hold in me, it really pulled me away from the things that I was really trying to go for. So I'd like to hear other people's, like, what's your best manifestation story?
Actually, Brendan, before we do that, would it be okay, brothers, if we can deconstruct the whole process of manifestation? Because the stories are important, but going from a common principle, I guess, is what is manifestation, number one, and that whole process of, because I'm not taking it for granted that everyone watching this uh, may be on the same level of what manifestation is. Does that make sense?
I think that's a great idea. Can I add about 2 minutes, Z, to kind of piggyback on what you said?
Yeah.
Oftentimes when people think about manifestation, it's, okay, I'm here now, and I'm going to focus on what I desire for the future. And I think that that's not as healthy a place to be as to remember that every second that we've been alive on this planet, we've been manifesting already. And so I think a healthy place to start from is, okay, for the past year, for instance, I've been manifesting. And if I haven't enjoyed that I've manifested, my job then is to look within and find out what it is in me that's vibrating at a certain level that's attracting what I've attracted. And the first thing I want to do when I'm manifesting is clean away some of those old limiting beliefs and thought forms and desires and expectations and attitudes, etc., so that I can clear the way for what it is I truly desire to experience. Is that kind of what you were talking about?
Yeah.
All right.
I would also add on top of that is that the principle of manifestation for me came in quite early, and it was quite unnerving, meaning what I can create things out of my mind and make them into reality. I have that power. I have that degree of power. I don't want that, right? Who all can relate to that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Right? And but yet we as men, we as human beings focus on the negativity, focus on the fear-based, and what we focus manifests, it becomes. So that in itself is manifestation. Because in my view, there are three principles that come into action. Thought, which is a quantum, it has energy. Emotion, which gives it the fuel. And three creates the reality. But what most people don't realize is that when they put the one and the two together, the thought and the emotion together, they expect this immediacy to happen. Yes, in this point in time on the planet, with the amount of energy that's coming in, things do manifest much quicker. And I believe in the very near future, they're going to be instantaneous, meaning what we think actually manifests. We have that degree. And ascended masters there have been stories of ascended masters, predominantly Saint Germain and Babaji, that have created things out of the immaterial world into the material world, things that didn't exist out of the ether. They just pulled it out and they've created that. So I just want to add that footnote as part of that manifestation.
Can you, real quick, can you name those three things again real quick?
Thought, which
Yep.
is quantum,
Yep.
emotion,
Yep.
right? And I guess the visualization associated with that, which creates the reality. So thought, imagery, and emotion.
Okay. Cool.
Aloha, fam.
What's up, Ed?
Hey, how's it? Good. Good morning. Good to see everyone here. So with this manifestation, would it be fair to say that, we're perceiving light in some fashion in a less dense manner, and we're just condensing it into something that's palpable before us, right? Like in a dream, you just show up in the dream, as I've heard before, but we all notice. But we wake up here and we've got this history that's going on. So like the condensing of this thought matter, because it's all something visual, right? And then taking that visual thing that you've seen somewhere in your awareness and bringing it into something that you can touch here, even though we're not even sure what touching is here at that. But that's how I think of it.
Yeah, and man, thank you, brother. And what I like to add to that, I don't know if gentlemen here, anyone watching, do you guys know that a rainbow is actually a sphere, and we're just getting this little slice? Like if you see a rainbow from an airplane, you see an entire circle. So this is the thing I would add on to what you just said as 100%. It's not just the fact that we're condensing this space-time or this light, this frequency, but it's also, as what Zissis was talking about, as we redirect our thought, our emotion, and our visualization, we're actually shifting our point of this light spectrum that we're living in. And we're not just looking at a condensed version, we're also looking at it from a new angle of what it is that we're actually trying to see. Like one of the things I really implement a lot, like we're always going to see what we're looking for. And we don't always realize like our subconscious is actually looking at this more than what we think we're speaking into. So when you get all these things to match, get that field condensed, and then move your perception of how you're even looking at it, this is where your reality and what's being perceived can shift. So that angle and combining these things, what Zissis is talking about, like that's a huge portion of that, because we're in this like light field all the time. And we're just getting this one little splinter of infinitesimal possibilities. And it's not just a individual thing, it's also at a mass conscious level, right? If you can subscribe to the idea that thought actually affects gravitational waves to a degree, and if we're in this multiverse and we've got a majority of the consciousness all thinking this one thought, that creates a ripple of gravity that puts us into that space-time. So this is why, subscribing to certain ideas, hearing people talk about certain things, it's adding to the collective of that reality. So if you don't want that, you have to unsubscribe. If you do want it, then you have to put more into that and help the consciousness just as much as you're helping yourself. I mean, it's all the same thing at the end of the day.
I absolutely agree. I read a book a long time ago, and I'd recommend it if you have a lot of time on your hands. It's called Tertium Organum. The author is P.D. Uspensky. I believe he's quite like. Have you heard of this book?
Oh, I read it. Yes.
Yes,
Beautiful.
my brother. How about them apples, huh?
Yeah. Fantastic.
I read this and I had it on my Kindle, so I would listen to the audio while I'd go on hikes and like just look at nature in different ways. And one of the things I loved in the book was talking about how, you know, if you had your hands on this glass, if I put my finger up here, you could just see a dot. But changing perspective allows you to see this. Changing another perspective lets you know that there's a whole arm attached to it. And this is the reality. So you've spoken, you know, wonderfully to it, Halo.
Thank you, brother.
Cheers.
Going on your comment about matter being light, there's actually a Russian physicist paper on the theory of photon decay into matter. And, you know, just going on what David said, that we are all consciousness, right? Everything that we are is an energy, including this illusion of this form, which is concentrated energy. And we are concentrated to the point where we manifest the reality. So if you look at it that way, everything around you is manifesting all the time. Now, there's many other scientific studies and things that confirm our connection and correlation to consciousness being light. Ingo Swann is a remote viewer, and they did some studies with him, and he was remote viewing into a pitch black room with a picture on the wall, and they had a machine recording the amount of photons in the room. And when he remote viewed into the room, the photons, they recorded 30 photons appearing on the picture that weren't there prior. You know, that's just this projection of consciousness. So we are that light. Our bodies contain light. You know, our DNA contains light. When you break apart DNA, it releases that light. Plants contain light. So everything is containing this light that is this concentrated matter. So thinking about how we actually are and what we actually are in this form, in this manifestation, changes everything about the understanding of manifestation itself, right? Yeah. So thinking about that, like all along the way, that through my different many experiences and what the periods were and everything manifested smoothly. And what I've noticed over time is the more I release the distortions from my own consciousness, the more I release the distortions from my own beingness, the more, just like Zissis said, is the more thoughts manifest instantly. The more like I can think about a thing and it happens in front of me. And when there's no resistance, it always happens pretty instantly, like depending on the degree of the thought form, right? And the time period that I'm in, the environment that I'm in. But usually those little seemingly inconsequential thoughts, like when I was living with my old roommate, I wanted a pizza, and I got home and he's like, hey, I just got us a pizza. I'm like, sweet. But those things happen all the time, right? And the more connected you are, the easier it is to happen.
Well, here's an example I will tell. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
You know, one of the best ways to demonstrate that is lucid dreaming. I'm not sure to what degree you've all had lucid dreaming, but I've had some pretty profound experiences, and, you know, we can go into astral projection at some point too. However, the first part of lucid dreaming is the understanding that you're in the dream. Yeah. When you're in the dream, then you can consciously change your form, right? You know, you look at yourself, you go, are these hands? Are these, what are they? Am I a dragon? Am I, you know what I mean? So the point of manifestation is exactly that. For me anyway, is it has that potential of when you're in a lucid dream and you can remove yourself from the emotional content, because once you get emotional, everything kind of snaps away. It kind of dissolves, as it were. Because that has happened to me for real. I mean, I'd be in a lucid dream and go, oh my God, I'm in a lucid dream. Boom, back out in reality. Yep. But when you can contain some level of emotional ease and be relaxed about the journey, it's incredible what can happen. And to add to Ingo Swann's perspective, there was the father of astral projection that I like to say, oh my God, what was his name, Halo? We talked about him.
Robert Monroe.
Robert Monroe, yes. He's got a series of 3 books. I mean, it is just mind blowing as far as what I'm concerned. And I know that we're walking a little bit away from manifestation, but those principles,
Very similar.
that terrain, that reality is exactly what manifestation is, in my view.
And the more you free yourself of attachments of all kinds, attachments of what it means to be in this world, attachments to what you think the physical world is, attachments to whatever your perceived limitations are, the more you free yourself of these attachments, the easier it is to develop even some of the more acidic level of manifestations, because it's a matter of identifying the frequencies and the consciousness that holds you into that container. And so when you can break free from that, then you can do some of those more magical manifestations, which is how I've done so many different things that I've done. It was just more of a recognition of that space and then tuning into it in a different way.
So this Zissis, brother, thank you. Look, Brandon, what you just said, that's why I was like, oh man, yes, okay. So I really want to be here for what we're doing. I don't want to talk about Mystech stuff too much, but it's very relatable to this right now. Yeah. So when you were talking about photon decay, right? And then you were talking about if there's no resistance, and as we're more connected, all these things are all physics and electrical at their baseline level, right? So who was, I think, Brandon, I think we talked about this in person, or maybe it was Ez, but so if you're looking at a piece of fruit hanging from a tree, right? While it's attached, it's being fed life force energy, and it's acquiring biophotons. And this is what gives it its nutrients, and this is what feeds us, right? Eat the sun, essentially. But you don't want to take that fruit fresh off and rip it off. You want to wait for it to fall off naturally. That's when it's at its highest state of biophotons. But the moment that comes off, it begins to decay. And this is what decaying food and fruit looks like, right? Mm-hmm. So to take this a step farther, once that decay starts naturally, and you take these things and you put them inside a grocery store where you've got a multitude of fluorescent lights and cell phones, it starts absorbing those things and makes the decay happen even faster. Mm-hmm. So to test this, like 2 weeks ago, I got like a copper sleeve netting thing that we imprinted to the Schumann residence, and went out and got a bunch of fruits and vegetables, broke off all the same bunches, put one inside the copper bag, put the other one back in the refrigerator. And these ones that were in our bag, because everything was aligned, there was no resistance, there was no distortion, its functionality inside was more connected. These things lasted like a week and a half longer than the other ones did. They taste completely different. So one thing about the manifestation is you can have your mindset, you can have your heart set, you can have your intention set, but if your physical bio body is not actually connected and has resistance from stress, from bad diet, from doubt, from a multitude of things, your manifestation's only going to go so far. And this is why so many people are like, man, I've been at this for months, but I'm not really seeing anything. But if you're not changing all of these other things along the way, you know, it's like going to the gym and working out and then coming home and eating dessert for the next 6 hours. Like there has to be a multitude of things to make it happen. And that again just comes down to physics and harmonics, right? So, and I think we talked about this maybe last show, but in music, if you play two notes that resonate together, this is tangible, and they vibrate in such a way that it creates a third intangible. And it's so crazy to me that we've had music as far back as we have human history, but we don't talk about that harmony being manifestation when that's exactly what it is. So there's all these memes and quotes you see all the time that say, match the vibration of what you, that's not true. Like that's okay to a degree because you're matching it and putting more action into it, maybe by matching it. But if you harmonize with it, and this is when we get into the stories, I literally have unlimited amounts of stories of real-time manifestation of, oh, we need this. Not even saying anything about it, just understanding the harmonics and going, oh, wow, this just showed up. I didn't even, wow, this is amazing. But it's being in complete alignment with self before you have the real ability to instantly manifest like we're talking about. So the resistance, the connectivity, the intent, and that was the other reason I was asking at the beginning, Zissis, of what the three were, is I would almost add a fourth one, but I don't want to because 3 is a magic number, of which is action. Yeah. Right? So many people think like if I just think about it, but I didn't make the phone call, I didn't send the email, I didn't even research. I just want this thing, but I know nothing about how to get it. Like there has to be a degree of physical implementation as well, even if it's minuscule, but it still has to be there.
Can I read a sentence to you guys? Can you hear me? All right. So I'm taking notes because maybe at the end of this, like I'll there's so many good things that each viewer can just pick up and look at if they were to just take one. But I'm going to skip a bunch of them and just look at this. So we're speaking to, okay, a mind, heart, intention, but what about your bio body, right? So what we're speaking to is, and I'm just going to phrase it as a holistic, harmonic, harmonious approach. Creating the harmonic, which is the third thing, right? Like the knowledge, wisdom, and then birthing the understanding, which is that third version of the harmonic, to help you get to the desired manifestation through action.
Ooh.
Right? So we still got our three, to not do three as a charm, but the baby of that is the action that's going to help bring it into the future. And so what is the action?
Yeah.
I'll leave it to the viewer. Yeah.
Always.
Right.
Always.
Right.
Actually, I want to, since we're adding, let me add another part of that.
Let me get the pen. I got it. Let's go for it.
So for me, the thought is the primary aspect of how manifestation creates. And I'll pick a very rudimentary example.
Okay.
When I was 7, I wanted a bike. You know what I mean? I wanted a bike. So I thought about it a lot, right? I saw myself riding that bike, right? The imagery associated with it. And then I harassed my dad until he finally got me a bike, right? The important part of the manifestation, I mean, for me anyways, oh man, I lost my point now.
You were going to add another one.
Yeah, it's the imagery, right? So the thought, the emotional content, and the imagery associated with it, it's great that you can contain that. But just like a letter, when you write a letter to somebody, I know people are disconnected from letters and writing and mailing letters now, but even like an email, whatever it may be. I mean, I look at it similar in that way. I'm writing a letter to you, Halo. That's the equivalent of what I want the manifestation. So I finished writing the letter. Everything's in there, the emotional, the imagery associated with it. And then I go and try to mail it. And I went, oh, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want to take this letter back. And I start adding some more stuff on it. All I'm trying to say through imagery emotional is at some point you have to release the thought and trust the universe and not think about it again, right? Far too much as far as manifestation goes is people think about things, they're emotionally connected to it, the thoughts are there, but they're incessantly thinking about it, not allowing the manifestation to take root and ground and let the universe provide in the way that it needs to be provided. That's why manifestation doesn't create in that way.
That's the resistance Brandon was talking about, right? Like immediately when you're talking about lucid dreaming, right? The moment you go, oh, I'm lucid dreaming, you now just created the barrier. So because you're acknowledging this wall, this thing that you're not supposed to do, you're feeding power into that and you're manifesting out of it immediately. It's the same thing with like, and we can have a whole nother talk about this, but like time control is a very real thing. And one of the biggest rules for this at the time I was like, look, while this is happening, you cannot look at the clock. You cannot even acknowledge that it's there because this creates the rule. And the moment that you look at it, then all of a sudden everything's back to normal. But as long as you stay out of it, once you get right.
That's just going to add on. That's exactly what happens. The moment you think of your body, I'm lucid dreaming. You're thinking of your body. So your awareness is back in your body and it's suddenly in two spaces. And so it draws you back to your body because your focus shifts. Your focus reshifts back to your physical form. There's so many other things that I've been in ceremony where I was focusing on something else and something reminded me of my form and drew me back there. Happens every time. So it's the matter of the consciousness that you are aware of in that moment draws the experience to you. So if you want to shift your form, you want to shift your beingness, you have to bring in this new frequency, this new awareness of whatever that is. And so like, I think it's not necessarily not thinking about it ever again. It's the way in people think about it, right? So when you think about something and let's say you're trying to manifest abundance, that's a common one, abundance. So you think about abundance, you feel it, you want to manifest it, and then you look around. And the moment you look around, you start fighting with what is. And so you try to reattach and force this other thing rather than be right where you are and hold this frequency and know things are shifting.
And no,
right?
Yes,
It's
no,
the
not
knowing
believe.
that
No.
things are shifting.
Yeah.
So when you do affirmations, for instance, you could say an affirmation and instantly the knowingness of what is currently is going to kick up in your subconscious mind. I am a millionaire. You're going to look around and like, fuck, no, I'm not. It's instantly going to say, no, no, alarm bell's going off, and it's going to fight that, and it's going to resist that. It's why when I hear people doing that, you know, my empathic self can feel no spark, no connection. It's this thing that they're trying to force themselves into. And when I tune into them, I say, well, why don't you say that again? And I tune into them and I feel into their body. I can feel the distortions that come up. And then I go into that. There's this belief here. This is belief here. It's why when I'm doing manifestation, I'll use not affirmations, but switch words. I don't know if anybody here is familiar with switch words.
Yeah.
So switch words are Masamuro Emoto did these experiments, these water experiments. And the water experiments showed the frequency and the vibration of the word as it changed the crystalline structure of water when it froze. So more disharmonious words like anger, hatred would have these very erratic patterns. And then more harmonious words like love and harmony would have these beautiful, intricate patterns. So each word itself has a vibration and frequency. And so when you give yourself a collection of words, they call a switch words phrase, you can say that as your mantra and feel that moving into the spaces of resistance. And so suddenly, as you're thinking about your goal, you have a pure energy addressing it rather than your mind trying to make sense of this thing that it knows not to be true. So suddenly your mind is going to go into a different place. And that's, how can this be true? Right? So because it has nothing to battle. It's just like, now it's integrating this other thing. So that's one of the things that I use instead of like affirmations, because it makes more sense to me not to try to battle myself, but to transform myself.
I love that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You all have brought up quite a bit. I want to kind of make sure I understand what you're saying, because I think we've got a lot of the different pieces that Brandon originally asked for. What are the tools we use? So it sounds like thought, word, and deed, all congruent, is a really important part of this, correct?
Yes.
In other words, a lot of people do this. They'll think something like, Brandon, you mentioned abundance, and they'll talk about abundance, but then their action is sitting on the couch watching Netflix. And so there's not a congruency there that's going to actually put the oomph into the actual manifestation. And then the other thing is, I think it's a basic, but we've kind of skipped over it, but yet we've all individually spoken of it, and that is that we create our own reality. If we all believe that and understand that, then these tools work. If we don't believe that we create our own reality and that we're victims somehow, or it's fate, or something else happens to us and that's okay, then none of these tools are going to work effectively. They're still available, but they won't be as effective. So I think the belief that we create our own reality is important, and then look around, in every moment we've created our reality. That's how we get to abundance. If we say we're a millionaire, that's why our unconscious or subconscious can say, oh no, you're not, David. However, when we say, I'm the most abundant creature that I know how to be, and I'm becoming more abundant every moment, and my words and my thoughts and my deeds are all congruent with that. And now the next step, I believe, is our thoughts, words, and deeds are also aligned with divine thought, word, and deed. Now we've got a massive push towards what it is that we desire to experience, and therefore our manifestations come, just like Brandon said, from a place you wouldn't expect it to, because we've got the whole universe now rooting for us and working towards the highest goal in our favor. Whereas our little human minds think, well, I want a pizza. I guess the way to get that is to pick up the phone and order one from a pizza place. And yet in Brandon's case, he just thought, word and deed, I'd really desire experiencing a pizza right now. And it came from a completely different, unexpected destination. Now the universe is kind of laughing at us thinking, ha ha ha, see what a funny trickster I am, providing that pizza in a way that Brandon wasn't really looking forward to. And yet that's truly how it happens. So am I getting this correctly?
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
100%. And I think what you said, the big part of that was the way that he was putting it out. It wasn't from like a demand or an upset. It was just, desire of a form of nourishment. And I think that's a lot of what it is I don't even think this abundance or manifestation is really ever the things we truly want. I think it's when we actually get rid of all the outside distortions and to get back to self, that these things are always right there for us. Okay. So for Brandon to require this nourishment, him being in his true space, not coming from a place of greed, destruction, anger, just in a harmonious nourishment state, it materializes. And that in itself, that's the actionable part, is he's already taken the time and put the action into his oneness. So that's the thing also, is it doesn't necessarily have to be picking up the phone or going downstairs and running. Is if you've taken the action to make your being in alignment, then your nourishment will always arrive.
I want to share something, brothers. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ez.
Okay, and I'll make it brief too. There was a time during my, we'll say before I got married the second time, Mr. Marrying a lot. And and I was going through a stage of the lucid dreaming, also working in the astral realm. And I had also watched the movie Inception, right? And so this conversation also brings to mind, when we speak to the thought, when I watched the movie Inception, which also helped me navigating the astral realm and I guess the lucid dreaming, was thinking what comes before the thought. Because some of these thoughts, because they're waves going through and we're picking up like, radios, is this thought a thought that's in line, as Halo's speaking to, with something that's actually for me, that I want for me, or am I being told that I want something? Did the wanting for the bike come from you? Or was it you're seeing bikes and something else is saying, you should have a bike? And then you're like, yo, Dad, bike. And Dad's like, damn, my son should have a bike. And, so this is something that I've sat with as well, is what is informing, what is creating, what is the cause of the inception of the thought? And am I aligned? Is that aligned with me? And is that affecting how things are manifesting as well? So I've spent a lot of time trying to see, is this really what I want? And why do I want it? And then maybe saying, okay, I think I want it. And then Halo, you spoke to this too. And then saying, well, you know what? I'm just going to not want it for a time and see what happens. And that just giving me a different perspective on manifestation. And just one more other thing with that is, again, discipline. Since we're speaking to the masculine and one of the tenets of what helps us, discipline and ritual. But like discipline is essentially setting up a field, by coming back and putting into something to where we create a form and a structure by action. And so I think that's been another key for me, is what type of discipline, what's the caliber of discipline that's needed for me as an individual in the totality to create and to bring into form, to condense or loosen up or be in the flow of what I'm looking to create. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
I wanted to add, because Brendan had mentioned many, many times alignment with source or God. So that's a bookmark. I think the other thing that I want to add to taking the example of abundance, in my view, and I'd love to have this conversation with you, is this specific enough? Because as we know, the universe is a trickster. Abundance, you say, okay, here is an abundance of bananas, or here is an abundance of whatever it is, right? Or what? Because your intention may have been abundance of finance. The way I envision it is specificity is really important in what you're trying to manifest. The more precise the image you can have, the more precise in all the emotions, all the five senses in living that reality, you're in my view, you're duplicating the future in the way that would be manifested to you in that time and space. And when you live in that time and space with all its emotions and then releasing it, it allows the universe then to fabricate it, much like a printer, like a 3D printer.
I think specifics are super important, because I wanted to be a millionaire and it wasn't happening. And then I went to Indonesia and then someone was like, man, I'm a millionaire here. And I was like, holy crap, this isn't where I want to be a millionaire, but I'll take it. Thanks, universe. And I just kind of kept on going with it. So specifics like USD. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And the other part of that is, you may want to be a millionaire, but what's the highest intention for all? Because if you're serving yourself and only yourself, it's not going to happen as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
If you get the millions and you're going to tie that money, or you're going to bring it into charity organizations or help others through that millions, then it is for you to help others to, make their life a little easier as well. At least that's my perspective.
I'm with you on that. I prefer to be a
I don't quite
conduit.
agree with that completely, though.
What's that?
I said I don't quite agree with that completely, because there are two paths essentially.
Okay.
There is the service to the self path, and then there's the service to others path. And if you are aligned with the service to others path, there's a good chance that there's a part of your soul that's going to resist you trying to jump ship to the service to self path. So if you are strictly going down this way, that's where the resistance comes in, because it's not a part of your soul alignment. But it doesn't mean that's that way for everybody, because there's certainly other people who are very service to self and manifest millions, right? So how is it true for them, but not true for us? And that's the real question, is because where are you really aligned to? And I think that's the key, is what are you really aligned to? What is your soul aligned to? And there's certain places that manifestation come from. There's the manifestation on the subconscious level that comes from our experiences, our traumas, our belief systems. There's this manifestation on the conscious level. It's the desires. I know I want this. I would like this. This is the direction I think I want to move in life. And then there's manifestation on the soul level, which is basically the frequency, the bandwidth, the direction that your soul puts you in. Like, you're going to move in this way, and these are the type of experiences we're going to have for you. And whether your conscious mind or subconscious mind knows it, that's why certain things line up for you in that way. An example for this is, I know without a doubt, during this time period that I had this thing happen, I knew without a doubt that nothing happens without my agreement on some level, without my alignment on some level. And so I was astral traveling, and I went out of my body. And I appeared, at this time, I would find myself often in other people's bodies. I didn't know how I got there. And sometimes it would take me a minute, like being in the experience, to realize what's going on. Like, oh, okay, I'm in somebody else's body. And I did that. And I landed in this reality, in this body of this teenager who was going to school. He had a friend there that was a very darker soul. And I could tell that the body that I was in was being manipulated by this other kid. Like, he was a bully, right? And he kind of just reluctantly followed around, and which is why, like, his openness is why he even ended up there. And I noticed, like, I was in such a tuned in state that I could open my eyes and I'd be back in my room. I'm like, wow. And I couldn't hear anything that was going on over there. And I would close my eyes, and suddenly I was back in this body again. And I could hear, and it sounds like an echo going through my head when this kid whose body I was in, when he was speaking, I could hear it like echoing through my head. And I could hear the other kid speaking like it was on the outside of me, just like I was in real life. But so I could switch back and forth. I was, well, this is really, really fascinating. So I'm always experimenting in these things, like finding out what more I could learn from the experience. So I wondered if, when I closed my eyes and I spoke over there, would they be able to hear me like I can hear them? Oh. I wonder what would happen. So I closed my eyes and I was like, hello. And that darker soul, he heard me, and he turned around in this very creepy response. Well, hello. And then boom, I was back in my body, and he was pushing his way into my body. He was literally possessing my body. And there was this big circle and this sphere everywhere he was. And I could feel it. And my energy went like this, and I stopped him. Mm-hmm. And everywhere he was paralyzed. I couldn't move. And I could, when I spoke out loud, and it was like half my lips were moving and half my lips were paralyzed. And I was wondering, like, why is this happening? Like, okay, so everything happens because I want it to happen on some level. Is this supposed to happen? And I got this no from my inner being, like, okay, is he of the light? No. Okay, so please get out of my body. Nothing. Get out of my body now. Nothing. I demand you out of my body. I command you out of my body. So I took authority of my space, and suddenly it was gone, right? And I could feel this like goo, and there's a space, but I was really pissed. I was pissed. How can this happen? And there was like this soul instinct in me that shot me out of my body. I'm going to go see the High Council right now. Realistically, like my conscious mind didn't even know who the High Council was. I don't know why I was saying that. It was just like this instinct. So I shot out of my body. Suddenly I'm in this void, and this man with this long white robe, long white beard, and hair down to the floor. I didn't see any feet. He just kind of floated towards me in this void. And telepathically, I was like yelling at him. I was like, why did this happen? Very calmly and telepathically, he responded, you wanted this to happen. Oh, and then I shot right back into my body, and then I started mulling over the experience. And then I started really thinking about what that taught me. You know, I had so many questions before about, okay, so if everything happens and nothing happens without my permission on some level, why does possession happen? How can possession happen? Can possession really happen? What happens in these instances? And I remember all of these different thought forms that I had, and they were being answered through this experience. And so my conscious mind didn't want it. My subconscious mind didn't necessarily want it, but it was my soul level that was responding to the inquiry that brought about this experience. And when I opened myself up to the teachings and the lessons there, I gained so much, and the gifts were there. So I accepted the experience fully, but it was because I surrendered to the experience and I learned from it. And I was also being guided through the experience too. So I was fully aware that this being had no place in me, but I also had to take full authority of myself, right? So I had to command my own authority of my sovereign being. So that's why I say, like, that's how I know that there's more than one level of manifestation. There's those 3 levels. And it's not always something that we're completely aware of, but we look at like the things that drive us in our life, the types of things that we're drawn to, the types of experiences that we've had, all of the combination of those. Over time, you can see basically what your soul is directing you into, which is why, like, some people, I can manifest anything. Maybe that is their purpose, but other people, like, they can manifest anything within this given frame. They're not even drawn to manifest over here. If they tried to do this other thing, it wouldn't necessarily work out for them because that's not their path.
It's very powerful what you've spoken to, especially, you know, just having like another tier of how we're navigating the space. Thank you.
Brendan, I think you know, I think you asked about service to self and service to others. So there's a lot of thoughts swimming in my head right now, and I'm gonna try to make semblance of some ordering here. So in this 3D world, we've always had the polarity. You know, in Atlantis, they called it the dark side, the sons of Belial, I think, as in the law of one, and the law of one. I can't remember what the light side is. So there's always these opposing forces. And this is the Luciferian experiment. This is the grand experiment of, you know, can this actually happen that way? You know, when Lucifer broke from God, saying, this is, you know, I'm much higher than you, we're kind of reliving these experiences ourselves, and trying to get domain out of something that's much, and that's the illusion as far as I'm concerned. So as far as manifestation goes, I agree with you. And from a perspective of the ones that envision the millions are the ones, and I've talked to a lot of millionaires, and some of them, a couple of billionaires actually, and they've been ruthless in how they got there. Absolutely ruthless how they got there. You know, I have this mental imagery of people like the individuals who walking on top of bodies to a mountain to get to their billions, their money, as it were. And I think life has much more sanctity, sacredness, divinity than that. And I think in some respects, the power is given to them in that manifestation. And I'm kind of struck back to the last temptation of Christ. You know, when Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, and I know I'm throwing out a lot of biblical stories today, but I know when Jesus was in 40 days fasting and the devil appeared to him with many temptations. You know, one of them was showing him the domains over earth to say, you can have all this. This is all yours, right? And he said no. And the last temptation was tempting him with marriage and kids. Now, if you read the Greek author Nikos Kazantzakis, The Last Temptation of Christ, he succumbed to that. And if you read the biblical terms, he didn't succumb to that. What I'm trying to say right now is overall, we've been living in an age of darkness and selfishness. And I think that has promulgated a certain culture of what we feel to be abundance or happiness at the expense of other human beings. And we're at that fulcrum right now where I believe that's changing. It's in my interest for you to do well, and each and every one of you, because in my view, when you do well, I do well. And that's the culture that's changing, I think, right now. We're seeing it right now in this COVID crisis. You know, where you were one individual really hammering to make money, you can't do it alone anymore. You need to have a company of people as a unity to be of the service of others. So that's really what I have to say.
You know, I wanted to touch on that too, because the service of self to service of others, this kind of brings me back to the very beginning of our talk here. So when we're talking about defining what manifestation is, so I think service to self and service to others are two very different forms of manifestation. So we can go all the way into the cosmos version of our higher selves are manifesting this reality, and that's good and fine. But and please correct me if I'm wrong. In this state, I'm more thinking about in real time in this where I'm at, and that's good to know, and that's a backup thing. But how do we put this into practicality right now? How do we do it in our physical form? So what I would argue is I don't, and this is just in my experience, I do not believe that while you are in service to self, you have the ability to consciously manifest anything. You can work and put action and climb over the bodies like you were talking about, and those bodies, that's the life force that's feeding in, getting what you want. That's not manifestation, that's work. That's a different thing. So when you're in service of others, manifestation is very, very different and requires way less work. So in our little equation of what manifestation is, that actionability there, that's like, it's a 5% part of the equation. It just has to be some actual action. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be work. On the other hand, service to self is like 95% action, because most of these, like these millionaires, billionaires you're talking about, sure, a handful of them might acknowledge and or know about all of these things in metaphysics and are thinking, I'm manifesting this. Other ones are just NPCs on autopilot going through the way that the world works, piling up bodies to get what they want. That's not manifestation. It might be at a macro level, but at this micro, it's not. So that's just in my experience. I know healers and energetics that are very center directed, but every single thing that they've acquired thus far is from taking from other people over and over and over. On the other hand, I was at a conference this weekend in Vegas, the 5D Biomed event. It was supposed to last until tomorrow. I left. I got a ticket home and came back. It was one of the most disgusting experiences I've ever had in my entire life. And this was supposed to be a place of consciousness. But all I heard was blame and fear and rudeness and all these things going, but these guys are making all this money and they're feeding off of this version of energy, but not manifesting anything at all. Meanwhile, I come back home, I lock myself up in my little dragon den up here and go, it's so nice to feel back in this amazing residence. And as I'm sitting in it, one of the guys I met there calls me and goes, hey man, I was just thinking about you right now. And I was like, that's so funny. I just pulled your pamphlet a minute ago. I'm actually back home. I'm not even at the event anymore. And he's all, what? And it was about getting out of this place that seemed so self-serving. That was the field. That was the vibe. And that might feed into some things, but at the end of the day, that's not feeding into the world, the good of the people. Like it was just, so again, I would just argue they're two really different things. When you're in service to others, what you need will manifest. It will materialize because you're now in the conduit of the divine path. But if you're working on just you, then you got to steal that energy from other people and use that to build this little mountain you're talking about to get the gold at the top, when really the gold is just in here the whole time. And you have to get rid of looking for it in here and try to help other people find it. And then it expands.
And I think that
If you ever pass.
I think both of those paths are manifestation, though.
yeah.
So,
Well, again, but I say, to me, I agree, but I think one's at a macro versus a micro, because to me, this is, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, I'm under the impression when someone goes, I want to know how to manifest, they want to be able to go, man, it'd be really nice to have this, and it materializes. Not, I really want to do this and do all the work. So that's what I'm saying. Like, one requires a lot more wheels and more all these things. The other one is just being so harmonic with all these things that it literally, and when we get to these stories, I'm telling you, I got them. Like, no problem.
I think there's divinely aligned manifestation, which is what you're talking about. And then there's the other kind, which also includes occult practices, right? So there is dark occult practices that can do some magical stuff, right? I know somebody who's been through ritual occult abuse, and the things that happened through that, were profound, right? She did things that were scientifically, quote unquote, impossible.
Yeah.
And it was the manifestation that she was groomed for, right? The abuse that she was groomed for in order to break her mind down to create those things.
Right.
But it wasn't necessarily a divinely aligned manifestation. It was through this ritual occult abuse. So she could still do those things. It's the difficult path. And if you listen to the law of one, there's the two paths. It's the service to self and the service to others. One is way more difficult than the other, but they both of them at their peak, right? Both of them, when they follow it to its completion, end back in the same place. Everything returns to God, essentially. Everything returns to the one.
Brendan, the only thing I would add is the service of self is devoid of the heart chakra. They totally bypass the heart chakra, right? And that's why that's why they call it the service to self. So they can only go so far. It's only and they can only go so far as dimensional realm goes. I think it's the fourth or fifth dimension before they can completely evolve even further. So for the service to self, that part of evolution of individuals, eventually they have to go back into the heart in order to get into the throat and pineal and crown in order to evolve into the higher dimensionals. The heart is it is to me the gateway. That's why I'm completely devoted to the heart.
From what I understood of the law of one, it doesn't say that it requires that for their evolution. It's like a darker path that ends up back at the one. So I didn't necessarily read that according to that philosophy that had to go through the heart. It was just a way more difficult path, and you end up in the same place. I do definitely agree that if you're doing the service to others path, that the heart is a huge major component of that. It's also why people going down the darker path, the occult path, they don't use the heart energy to manifest. They use sexual energy. That's right. That's why they use sex magic, because it's a very potent, powerful energy that they can use and get to with bypassing the heart.
And that's why they don't have any empathy for humanity whatsoever. If you look at the occult practices, the blood rituals, all the rituals associated with it, and the horror of what happens, especially with children, I mean, they're devoid of any feelings or any empathy associated with that. And that's what the power, that's the energy leech coming from that.
I'm smiling just because how deep we went in this conversation. Like, I know most of our stuff has been like, keep it light, but going deep. But I feel like this conversation went in on, the metaphysics, and we brought to light some of the different texts that one may look at, as well as like, I'm getting my spider tingles right now. I'm liking where we're at with all this, and just appreciating.
I missed the last 30 seconds.
All of us.
Sorry, guys.
Oh yeah. No worries.
I keep getting disconnected for some reason. So it sounded like you ended with a really good thing, Brandon. So thank you for keeping the wave going, as because I missed the whole chunk, but it sounded good.
Sure. Yeah, I was like, where the halo go?
I was like,
Yeah, it keeps kicking me out. I can't figure it out.
Yeah. Do you mind if I jump in here just a quick?
James.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've been gone for two sessions, and right away, I'm not even gonna lie, my mind is just and the depth that we went, and it's great. I love it. But I think just maybe with me, maybe it was the week that I've had, or maybe the 2 weeks that I've been missing you. I've really just, I've just tried to simplify it. And I agree with all you guys on the depth of everything. And I think, but when, in terms of manifestation, I feel that, and everyone's touched on it, it comes back full circle to self. I think if we want to be powerful for others and we want to be there for, to manifest anything, really, I think, eventually it comes back to yourself, how you break yourself down, and being present, really, and being aware of kind of where you are, I guess, along your path. And I think when you even attempt to find your path or attempt to delve into something outside of your comfort zone, I think the universe feels it. And I think manifestation is a little bit of them seeing what you're doing kind of from up above and being like, yo, I'm going to give James, I'm going to give Z a little bit of love this week because we feel what he's doing. But let's see what he does with the love. Let's see if he falls back into his old habits and kind of, you know, forgets it and lets it pass right by you. You know what I mean? Or is he taking that and hopefully building on it? And I think the more you build on it, the more you look internally and break yourself down in different ways. I've always said the 4 different ways: physical, emotional, mental, and the spiritual. And I think when you tap into one of them in any other way, I think the universe feels it. I think you may have tapped onto that vibration that caught their attention and you get something in return. I think manifestation kind of results from the momentum that you build from these little things that you may be working on yourself and these little tasks that you say. And it comes down to that thought, you know, I wrote it down, the thought, the word, and the deeds. Like David said, every single time that you get thrown a bone, I think you almost have to kind of think, is this something? Do I recognize it? Is this a bone that, you know, is it the work that I've been putting in? And then there's that belief that Z said, that you have to kind of let it all go and kind of believe that it is it. You know, it is the universe throwing you a bone, and then the action is obviously the hardest. You know, once you get through the thought, the word, the action is always the hardest. And I was always taught, you know, playing sports and from a lot of my coaches, I had one really kind of alternate thinker of a coach who he separated himself from the physical, from all the physical aspect of sports, and kind of said, if you think it enough, you believe it, and if you believe it, you become it. You know, and I think that goes for both good and bad. You know, I think when we are in the shit, you know, in the shits in our own little path, I think it's easy to kind of shit on ourselves. You know what I mean? You start talking negatively about yourself, and that translates into almost belief. And then you believe that thing long enough, and then you actually become it. But in today's society, this just, you know, with all this stuff going on, I've actually really, me personally, maybe just tapping into like a little story, I've actually had to take a step back. Not in a bad way that I say that, can I control everything around me, blah, 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 but I really tried to simplify everything and kind of take a step back and break myself down. And I think to satisfy that, that self side, one, I had to recognize that something needed work. And for me personally, this past 2 weeks was actually gratitude. It was a big, just, I'm seeing a lot of my buddies losing jobs and I still got one. You know what I mean? You know, I'm blessed to live with my mom, and my mom took me in after COVID took, you know, with all the stuff happening, and me and my girlfriend live under a nice, cozy house. When I see some of my friends getting evicted, getting kicked out of their things because of rent policies and stuff out of their control, you know, excuse me. And then ideally what I did is that I broke down myself into kind of like my meaningful things to me outside of family and friends. You know, me, I did the old school, remember in school you had to do the brainstorming with the little clouds and the bubbles, and then there's a little branch and then it leads to another cloud. I broke myself down, and with no judgment, with pure intentions, really. And I broke myself down into, you know, my sporting life, into coaching and player. And I said, you know, why am I still chasing this? You know, all these things that I had, teaching abroad, I still kept these doors open. And I realized that I was a big FOMO guy. You know, I was fear of missing out. I kept all these doors open because just in case something was popping, you know, I still had my link and I still had my foot in the door. But what it did, it distracted me from myself. I couldn't be complete because I never completed these things that have already served me. So in terms of like, you know, leading back to manifestation, there was a little kind of intention that I had this week is just to cleanse myself. And part of it was this incompletion. So I went to big parts of my life that I broke myself down, and I reached out to people. My first coach that saw something in me that took me to that elite level, I reached out to him, and Z, remember how you were saying it's little, you know, writing and stuff like that is few and far between. I even took it a step further and I showed up to his place. Another one of my bosses that gave me an experience that took me on all over Europe, you know, to teach English and to teach camps. And I reached out to her and really I just said, I thank you. You know, this is part of me closing off part of my life that I'm so grateful for, but I have to close in order for me to kind of get better and for me to be better for myself and, you know, and maybe get the attention of the universe a little bit, you know. And it was the best talk I've probably had in a long time, you know, outside of these talks and stuff like that. And she was crying, I was crying, but we actually cleared that space. And now even for her, you almost felt like this, both of us, this big elephant jumped off the back. And then she reached out to me and said, you know, something big happened to her. And I think that was just the combination of both of us getting to a point where we knew we needed to be better, and we had to reach out, you know, to the people that we knew we needed to. We resisted it. And then there's other people, situations, scenarios, you know, other relationships. But the fact that I recognized it, she kind of probably recognized it, but I took the action, you know. And I think that goes a long way with everything that happens today. I think a lot of people feel one way, they get to that thought, they get to that, you know, that word, and then they fall short in the action. And it was really good. And now it's just kind of opened up new doors, and it kind of lifted things off my back. But now I am actually better for others. I'm better for my family. I'm better for my friends and the people I work with. And just ties back to the very beginning of like how powerful we really are. It's not by accident that, you know, when I did all that stuff, people at work were just happier. I was happier than people at work were happier. I think people like us, we vibrate on a different level. And I think we do have more power than we think. And I think we even, as much as we talk about it, we still downplay it. And that's the question why do we downplay it, even though we know we are these powerful, energetic beings that can, you know, our physical stuff can actually affect non-living things. You know what I mean? But why do we still put a cap on ourselves? I know we're trying our best to still see outside the box, but like to some level, maybe it's inside each one of us. We still put a cap on ourselves for some reason. And that's what I'm working at. I want to manifest little things, but things for others and stuff like that. But I realized if I need to do that, this guy has to be at his best, you know. I 4 levels. I know everyone has their different levels, but with my levels, it's my mental, my physical, my emotional, and my spiritual. And I've always felt that when I tap into those first 3, the physical, the mental, and the emotional, the more I work on that, I get a little bit of shade of my spiritual sense or my spiritual self. I'm still trying to shed this this connection that I had growing up with spirituality and religion. I'm learning to divide them, but some parts are linked, you know, and I've learned to accept that as well. But I think with me, and I think with other men just like us, you know what I mean? I think when we do tap into our purest self, we are at our best, and we are at our, you know, we can share more and we vibrate at a higher level. But sometimes we're not, you know, and I think that's okay too. But the search is the key, the willingness to know that you got to give us something up in order to get something else. Knowing that you may have to drop a hobby that you love, or, you know, a relationship that you think is serving you, but really is kind of like that anchor that's kind of slowing you down. And I really just had to share that. And it was 2 weeks away from you guys. And just like I said in the thing, it felt like there was something missing the past 2 weeks. I don't know why. And after just listening to this, I know why. It's it's a community outside of my normal community. But I connect with you guys through a screen almost more than I connect with people in person. And that's why I love this. That's why I really wanted to share that. And what was bothering me was, and this is what I'm working at, my lack of action sometimes when I know that my presence contributes to this conversation. And I didn't communicate with you guys. I knew further ahead of time that I could have missed it, but I didn't. And that's what I'm working on too. And that affects my manifestation. I wasn't my pure self with you guys. You know, I dedicated myself to these Sunday talks. I look forward to these talks, but I almost made excuses. And I think and then really those excuses were battling all the successes that I had with, you know, this gratitude and things like that. And that was this internal battle where I said in the very beginning, felt physical this week. It felt like I was carrying a lot more than I should have, but I did good things. But then right on the other side, I had to look at my other self and be like, yo, I still wasn't as pure as I could have been. And when I hear you guys go to this depth, when I hear you guys go and really the astral planes and stuff like that, I feel it, man. I feel it. And it was kind of weird because sometimes I think that I'm not on your level, you know, when it comes to that. Then I'm sitting there, I'm like, fuck, man, yes, I am. I do feel this shit, but just in my own different way, you know. I see it in a different angle. Just like, you know, when as was saying, you might, you know, if you see it this way, but you might have to turn it around and kind of spear and turn it this way. And that's the way I've been seeing everything that you guys have been saying, really just trying to see my angle at it. And I feel refreshed just getting that off my chest. I feel refreshed that I'm back talking with you guys. And really, yeah, and honestly, like, sorry if my attention gets away because I've been taking notes. I've been taking Ez's advice and having a little pen and paper beside, so I'm just jotting down things. And
yeah, man.
Yeah. And it's so nice just to kind of go back. And even while you guys are talking, like the one thing that I wrote down was balance your physical to help your manifestation. And sometimes, you know, and I think someone had mentioned in our group chat, you know, someone had identified each person's kind of like personality or like their role in it. And I feel that I'm the physical dude, you know. I feel that I'm like that raw, like the raw kind of guy. And that's the thing that stood out to me the most, was balance my physical to help my manifestation. For me, sometimes my physical goes through the roof and then my mental and emotional stuff goes into shitter, you know. And it's not by accident that things don't work out my way that day or that week, or I feel harder on myself. And it's just like I always have to kind of come back to some of the notes that I had last time too, and just kind of bring it back down. Find that harmony that you guys are talking about with the universe and myself, really. And I think when we do that, I think when dudes like us do this just once a month, you know what I mean? Like, just the kind of shit that we actually kind of stir up. Because I'm always thinking, man, after every talk that we go through, it gets me thinking and it gets shit happening. I don't know why. I know it's not by accident, you know what I mean? But it just so happens that things start going, you know, and yeah, just to kind of, I want to send my gratitude to you guys. I know sometimes I've only seen your face maybe 4 or 5 times, but I appreciate you guys for accepting my energy into this group, for lending me your ears momentarily, you know what I mean? But really, it's a good feeling. It really is. And I really want to thank you. Thank you guys.
Oh,
Thanks, James. Great share.
thank you, James. Good to hear your voice, man. I got downloads as you were speaking, brother. Just feeling your vibe.
Thank you.
Yeah, I pictured all of us as a tree, and then I opened my eyes and I saw David Giving Tree, like right in the center. You know? And I won't get too deep into it, but I just feel like, you know, there's a totality of what we're speaking to. And so sometimes we're the conduit directing the flow of the energy, which is what makes the 5%, you know, situation very easy. Sometimes we want to be the energy pushing through the conduit, which can be more difficult. And then sometimes we're just the observer. And so I just feel like there's a need for all of what's here. And in our manifestations, you know, in my journey of looking at manifestation, I also look at the fact of, well, we're all in it together. So sometimes I may apparently fall short, but there's another aspect of me that's holding the line. And then I think of myself as trying to hold the line, you know, when I can, for the rest of what's needed. And so then we're never really failing, because we are always manifesting. It's just how much awareness are we bringing to the manifestation? So I jotted down soil, seed, tree, water, leaves, sun, right? Soil, seed in the soil. But really, is the soil giving to the seed, or is the seed actually giving to the soil? And applying the same thing, you know, with the water, is the water wanting to be absorbed by the tree? Are the leaves and the sun in a relationship? So just what is the relationship between all of these? That's where I'm going to go this week. So I'm just sharing it with you, you know, in my journey. But it brings me a measure of peace, and I feel like I'll be able to flow with that in whatever comes to fruition this week, amidst everything that we're putting out into the field.
Thanks, Ez.
Thank you. All right, I'm chilling.
James, thank you. Thank you so much for the share, man. That was a deep share. And thank you for actually adding another element to the manifestation, because when your thoughts and your deeds and your action associated with it actually do manifest, we forget the gratitude, right? And the gratitude is such an important part. The fact that we're here on this planet, living the lives that we have, it is a gift. No matter what is going on in our lives, it is truly a gift. And as all of you guys have been through your dark night of your souls, you know, we tend to lose that sometimes, thinking, you know, is this a gift? Is this a gift? You know, but it is truly a gift, because it allows us to experience and to evolve our consciousness, or to have a better understanding and awareness, so we can unite with the source. So thank you, James. I very much appreciate your share.
Thank you.
Oh, gratitude, gift, gratuity. That's the awareness part, right? Being aware of the gift that you have received.
Yes.
Thank you, Zissis. And thank you, James, man. It's good. Feels good.
No worries. Thank you.
Can I talk about gratitude just for a minute?
Yeah.
Well said, Z. And you're right, James. Gratitude is such an important part of this. And spending a couple of weeks focusing on gratitude, wow, that's 2 weeks well spent. I want to talk about my experience with gratitude just a little bit. One is one of the reasons it's such an important tool is gratitude, jumping up and down like I'm a little kid, excited about my life, actually raises my vibration. And so doing my thought, word, and deed, and then before I receive the manifestation, but literally jumping up and down in joyful gratitude that here I am in this wonderful experience, that I'm in the flow, I'm in the harmony of the flow of the universe, and showing that gratitude actually raises my vibration. And as we've discussed so many times, our vibration is what attracts that to us that we desire to experience. The other thing about gratitude is, in that process, we actually create a void. And maybe Halo could talk more succinctly to this, but the gratitude of an experience that isn't necessarily in 3D yet, but as we know, it's floating around in 5D and maybe other dimensions. It's just, we haven't met up with it yet, but it's there, it's already here. It's just that we can't see it. We haven't experienced it yet. And so the gratitude is the juicy part that creates literally a void. And Halo, again, can speak to this. In physics, the universe won't allow a void. The universe, what it does when it has a void, it fills it up. And so when our thoughts, words, and deeds are all harmoniously focusing on a particular experience, and we've created a void, the universe has no choice but to fill that void with what our desires and expectations happen to be. So gratitude is such a great part of this, such a valuable experience and a valuable tool in this that it can't be underestimated. So thanks for bringing that up, James. That was beautiful.
Oh,
Thank you.
man.
It's like we lost Halo again.
We'll join.
But I agree, and I understand the process that you're speaking to. That gratitude is creating the void, and the void in that higher frequency opens up a door to collapse something into, it collapses into this other density. But so when your vibration is high, manifestation is a little bit quicker. So it's like you're pulling it in and collapsing, which sounds amazing. I love the idea of jumping up and down after, I think I'm going to try that as a practice. One, it's a good exercise, and two, obviously I'm excitable. So,
But I think
James did one other really important thing. Can I just add a little bit? James talked about taking the 2 weeks to kind of clean out his closet, so is what I like to call it, kind of working on himself to decide what is it that's no longer serving me. I think it's really important when we're manifesting, if it were a physical manifestation and our closet was completely filled, we don't have space for our new things. But when we go into that closet and we take out armfuls of our old stuff and give it to Goodwill and give it to our friends and give it to people that really need it, now we've got an empty closet or a cleaned out closet. And that also creates a void that the universe can fill in for us. Yeah. And so, James, you're 100%. Working 2 weeks of cleaning out that old stuff that you thought, well, that'll keep my foot in the door. But actually, you're right, James, it was holding you back.
Yeah.
And that creates the newness and the now. And sometimes what the universe will do is it'll fill in your closet with some of the stuff that you did give away, which is great. Universe is pretty smart, way smarter than we are. So when you create that void, the universe will fill it up with what that juiciness in your thoughts, words, and deeds is desiring. Right?
I agree 100%, David. Like,
well done, my friend.
Thank you. I actually took the the advice from. I mean, I watch it on YouTube and on Netflix about the Marie Kondo, about really giving gratitude to the things that you're actually going to give away. And I'm notorious for that. I was just raised around that. My family, I just literally have a family of hoarders. And I love them to death, but you know what I mean? And I understand why they had, but not hoarding just things. They hoard things in their mind and in their spirits and things like that. And there's no space for anything else to come in, and not love, not compassion, not anything. They just can't even let a smile crack on their face. You know what I mean? And I had to evaluate myself, and I said, I'm a little bit past that. And now it's physical stuff that was kind of holding me back, and literally, figuratively and metaphorically, cleaning up multiple closets, attaching myself more to nature to kind of clear up my mind was huge. And really going back to things of necessity. I kind of had to look back, if I don't need it, really, if it's not going to kind of serve me moving forward, whether it was clothes, and this is where that kind of affected me. When you're around those people, it rubs off on you regardless, and you can't help it. And I started to catch myself holding on to just, not to go into the physical stuff, but pairs of jeans. And my girlfriend was always breaking me, being like, let's get you just this basic pair of jeans, because you can't be wearing these old jeans anymore. And I was like, nah, I'm good. And I'm attaching an emotion to these ratty ass pair of jeans. You know what I mean? And then it was kind of crazy. And my girlfriend is a naturopath, so she's really helped me clear up the physical part, the nutritional part that was really holding me back and caused me to make bad decisions and kind of putting me in different moods. And I've been really opening myself to listening to her more, because I always said, babe, don't doctor me. I know you're a naturopath, you to be my girlfriend, but I kind of never opened myself to her. And when she started doing this thing, literally we went getting jeans yesterday, and I slipped on this pair of jeans, and I was always a bigger dude, and I slipped into a pair of jeans that was size 29. I have never in my life thought of myself to be different physically, let alone emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, but just that this pair of jeans showed me how hard and the actual work that I have put in to myself, and the dedication. And then just I think it was, as I was saying, Halo, the discipline. the discipline that it takes to be physically healthy and mentally healthy, and having the nerve, to look inside yourself to know what gets you going and what is the best for yourself. Most people, don't know themselves enough. They're so dissociated and so disconnected from different parts of themselves that they just give up. They don't even bother looking into that mental thing or addressing an issue with a friend or a family member, or, emptying out their closets in a way. And really, like I said, it was more, that was the gratitude that I actually had to, and it's always the hardest to give, is to myself. I know it sounds weird that this pair of jeans that we bought yesterday actually meant so much to me, because it showed how much work I put in all aspects. And it's just showing in a little physical way. And it's a smaller size pair of jeans, but I don't give myself, and maybe this can goes to you guys as well. I don't give myself enough pat on my back. I don't give myself enough gratitude that I know that I deserve from myself, not from anyone else. It's nice to get gratitude from everyone else, but when you can learn to kind of talk to yourself and kind of say, hey man, good job. I think we all deserve that little bit every now and then. And I think that actually those little self-treats, I call them, you know what I mean? Treating yourself to like a little pat on the back, or whatever it is, the beer that everyone likes to have at the end of the night. I just want to earn it. I want to earn everything. I've always been a big guy on that. And I want to earn that feeling, that gratitude that I gave myself. I don't want to just give myself gratitude for doing fucking nothing. You know what I mean? And I know it sounds weird that it manifested in a pair of jeans.
Not at all.
But you know what I mean? But like, it was crazy. And it was a combination of accepting this new pair of jeans, but giving away these jeans that have served me so well, but now someone's going to use them. I'm very adamant about giving my stuff away so it can be reused, but more stuff, the knowledge that I can, that I've acquired from you guys, that I've acquired along my path, can also be reused to other people. So this pair of jeans that I gave away is just kind of like another way of me sharing my story, my path, and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny that pair of 29 size jeans kind of strung this all up on me, you know what I mean? But I love it. I love connecting myself, and here when I hear you guys talk, I connected to myself, but I connected to like different things and different scenarios, and it's really, really, really nice to get here. But I want to keep going. I want to give myself that extra little gratitude. I want to make it like a weekly thing, and then work on that and get to a daily thing. You know what I mean? Because I see that when I do that, I'm just a little bit better than I am if I don't. So.
And that's the principle.
Could I ask then, fellas, like as a consensus, it sounds like celebrating your victories, even the small victories, should be part of our self-love practice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I love this, brother. Thank you.
I think we've been waiting. We always wait for big victories. We wait for the biggest thing to happen in order to kind of give ourselves like an applaud or something like that. But nothing ever big happens without accomplishing these small little things. And some of these small little things are actually the hardest things. They require the hardest things that we need to work on. We need to transform or change. And that's why I think we wait too long for these little big kind of things to happen, but we fall short because, we don't give our gratitude to ourselves for accomplishing the smallest, most meaningful things.
And that's the principle. I want to add now really something important. That was the principle of the Divine Masculine Roundtables, is to lead with integrity in what we're sharing with the stories, and to have the stories out to everyone, men and women. But the intention there was, as we share, it would allow other men to share as well, and create communities and pockets of communities across the whole globe. And that when you begin to unburden yourself in that way, it allows for that space of healing. And in a bigger sense, I think what we're all creating here is a healing circle, a healing planet, having a conduit for these. This is what these conversations are meant to be. So yeah, really, really rich stuff.
Awesome. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. It's funny. We're here talking about manifestation, and I know like one of my things I'm always thinking in the back of my mind is I know I overtalk, especially if it's something I'm passionate about. So I was like, all right, today I'm gonna do my best not to talk that much. And apparently I'm manifesting a bad internet connection, so I don't even have the option. So
Oh shit. We're gonna
so it's
manifest a
great.
good connection for you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So again, here we are in real time, you know, and this
Yeah.
is again, the bits and pieces I did catch, James, what you're talking about is like, you know, one being real with the self, whatever that is, the good or bad. And so when we were talking about just before you started the self-serving versus other serving, and then you're talking about it does come back to self. I think that to clarify that for what I was understanding was knowledge of self, not necessarily for self, but knowledge of self, and coming in and clearing again those conduits to be able to manifest these things, right? And so giving yourself that pat on the back, right? My 13-year-old Amante, he's an amazing individual. He's a highly emotional young child, right? And it's amazing. And a lot of times he'll be hard on himself and be like, I don't think I'm worthy of this. And I have to get back and explain to him, I'm like, listen, Amante, every being out there, we are all worthy of all of these things, but it comes into, are you deserving of it? And this is where that small action and putting the intention of like, how am I going to get these things if I've not created the trajectory for that, if I've not created the conduit, the circuit of completion to receive that energy? So being worthy is one thing, but if you're not so knowledge of the self, then how can you possibly channel that energy into what you deserve to have? And so I think you definitely nailed it on that. And the celebrating and excitement of all the little things along the way, like that's also part of the trajectory. You know, I've looked at it as, you know, I watch a lot of anime, right? So there's scenes in like Naruto where they're trying to hit a target that's around 8 trees. So they'll throw one thing kind of slow and know it's going to fall, and then hit another one at a faster speed to change the trajectory. So sometimes that's what we have to do. And all the little pats on the back, that's that little boop, the next little flick up to reach that next higher level. So I really am, and I've talked with Zissis about this, I'm overly excited about every single verse, even the bad stuff. So when you're talking about, is this for me? Yep. I don't know how yet, but the thing that I want must be in here somewhere. And maybe it's this bad lower spot where I'm at. That had to be the thing to ignite me into this other thing. So the more we can celebrate the moments and really go, not is this for me? How is this for me? Then that again takes this thing to this, to this. And that's where we all need to be to all the time.
Halo, you need to create a whole program around that, man. There's so much.
I sent it to Ez.
No kidding.
I'm working on.
Yes,
I'm working on all the visuals and videos and everything. I mean, the Order of Alchemy, that's my Jedi alchemy school. This is I teach this. Like my longest going student, she's out in Vietnam right now, absolutely just having the most amazing time. And she was staying here for like deep apprenticeship, right? And literally one morning she just woke up and she goes, I'm going to Vietnam. And I was like, what? And she goes, it's never even been on my radar. And I saw something last night that just triggered something in me. And this morning, within 2 hours looking into it, I had my visa ready to go. I had the place to stay. And it was completely like, it was effortless. It was just a thought. And because I followed the string, it literally just pulled me. And now and because of COVID, she's stuck in paradise for like $200 a month. For a 1-bedroom, fills her fridge for $10 a week. She can see where all her food's coming from, all super fresh. She is a like overly advocate for eco-friendly everything, and everywhere she's at, that's how everyone is. So following these things, whether we fully understand what it is or the how or the why, that creates these amazing experiences for us that she's been able to share with me, that I can share with you, and that's that same momentous conduit that we have to have, right? So
that's a great example of manifestation right there.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And about a lot of it does come down to, you know, we're talking about the understandable versions of what people talk about, right? The thought, the emotion, right? But we still have our energy meridians through our body and our chakra system that very much reflect elemental versions of harnessing these type of energies, right? So if you think of like things like mudras, right? I don't know if you guys are all familiar with that, but so your thumbs, that's your fire element, right? So if you're trying to manifest your will, your drive, your creativity, you know, having these in very specific placements creates also that same type of channel. And here's what's really interesting about that. If we even pull farther back into the macro of we're creating all of these things, regardless of how true or how much you understand what this is, your intent of knowing that this is that element, holding this here, this also deepens that experience, right? And so not to get too into the matrix thing, but it's not about, you know, thinking you are, it's knowing you are. So knowing I deserve to have these things. I don't know what these things all are. And earlier, Zissis, you were talking about getting like very specific on your manifestations. And I found for some things that to be true, but honestly, for me, ultimately, the more that I'm like, I don't want to be a millionaire. I want to have everything I need to change the world. That creates way less parameters, but creates such an amazing space that I don't even know what that means. I don't know. Why do I need a millionaire if someone's just going to give me 50 acres of land? Okay, man, I can do so much with that. And so same thing, like most of the stories I would have for my manifestation was looking at the idea of what felt could be right and then trying to remove as many parameters of what that was. So I know it wasn't coming from my value system. It was coming for whatever was in alignment with these things, right?
Attention, yeah.
That's super valuable, Halo. If I can just add to that, when you decide specifically that your reality is going to be a specific way, and that's what you're desiring to manifest, then the universe says, well, okay, through that little keyhole, Halo is allowed some energy to pass. However, when you do what you did, Halo, and say, I just want to be able to manifest or have what I desire so that I can assist the world, now there's no longer just a little keyhole of energy, but the whole world opens up. And then your desired end result comes through a billion different ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh man, absolutely. 100%.
So I love that. And or just adding a phrase like this or something better. Whatever the universe decides is the highest vibration for me and my community, let's see what that is. And I love what you said. I don't even know what it looks like. I love that.
I don't have to. That's the fun part of it.
That allows you to be receptive to whatever shows up that fits that bill. And like Brendan said early in our talk, it almost always shows up in a way that you had no idea. It was beyond your comprehension of what that actually looked like. You couldn't.
And so much better.
Yeah, so right? It opens up that whole spectrum.
Yeah. No, and it's funny you say that. Like with Mystech, you know, so many times we talk to people about it could do X, Y, and Z. And they're like, well, like, but better's better.
That's right.
Right. So whether you think that you want it or not, it's better. And that better version can also be better. Yes. So that's why it's not. And that's exactly how you said it. Like it is something more than what you can comprehend. And that's what I was trying to say. Most of the time, it's so much more exciting and so much more shocking that it's, wow, I just wanted this thing. Oh, I'm glad I didn't get in that car. Like this is amazing. Like, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well said. Good job.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Thank you.
I'm glad you both brought that up and touched on that because that was something I've been kind of holding back in this space for a while now that I wanted to get to is when it's appropriate to focus on the specific and then when it's more appropriate to let go for something more. And there is that space too that sometimes you can focus on something so specific that you think you want and do all the things to manifest that. And then when you get it, you're like, oh, not quite what I thought it was. Because I had been so specific to a T and then I got it and I immediately regretted what I manifested. I'm like maybe I wasn't specific enough. Maybe I was too specific. And I looked at that and I'm like, wait, and then I scaled back. I'm like, how can I do this in a different way? And that's when I really opened up to God, to Creator and said, okay, you know what I want and what I need more than I do. And so I want the thing that's going to be fulfilling for me. I want the thing that's going to be the most passionate for me. I want the thing that's going to bring me the most joy. So whatever these things are, this is the thing that I want to pull towards me. And sometimes I will go into merely just the feeling of it. And then I will hold the feeling of what those things feel like in my body, in my manifestation, in my realization. And sometimes it does require something a little bit more specific to get you going in a direction, right? I need to land somewhere. There's a vector that I'm on and I need to land somewhere. So how do I land that? And that's where I like Neville Goddard. I don't know who is familiar with Neville Goddard, but Very, very amazing teachings. And one of the things he says is begin with the end in mind.
Yep.
And so it's not about the specificity of it. It's not about the specific thing that's going to get you there, but he suggests imagining something that you would be doing if it were already true.
Yeah.
And so if I'm looking at abundance, what would I be doing if I had the house of my dreams? It's not about getting the house. It's not about how I got there. It's what would I be doing in the house of my dreams? And so suddenly I can close my eyes and feel the gratitude. I can feel the fulfillment as I'm standing in the kitchen of my dreams and I'm just making food. And it's something as simple as that my mind can accept. My subconscious doesn't reject. I love making food. It's very simple, but it's the way the kitchen looks. And I'm standing there and I'm feeling the reality of that to be true. When I was at a house that I previously lived in, it was during a time that there was a massive scabies outbreak in the house. And I couldn't get the roommates to be on the same page with me in order to get rid of it. So it had festered for like 3 months and I was just beat and wore out and trying to get rid of that thing. And I had said in the beginning, you guys need to wash your clothes. You need to stay away from my daughter. Don't touch her. And they couldn't listen to anything. And so it's just, oh man. And I knew like in that space, I had this little 1 bedroom. It was just me and my daughter. So like, you know, she's like just a little wee one. So we shared a bed. And I was like, man, she's got to get her own room. I got to get somewhere else. And so I laid down and I'm like, I want a different house. I want to live somewhere. And I started imagining, I let the picture come up in front of me and I saw this wood floor. I'm like, I like wood floors. And I saw these stairs and I walked up the stairs. I'm like, oh, I like the stairs. And I felt really comfortable in the house that I was seeing. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. I love that. I don't know how this is true. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I love that. And so I really held that and integrated that. And I appreciated that. And I opened my eyes and looked around and I still recognized where I was. And so knowing that there's this part of me that's calling forth this other thing, that's what I kept, right? I kept the reality of that. And then a little bit later, I met somebody and he's like, well, I'm looking for a roommate. No, you can move in. I'm like, oh, awesome, right? And so I'm looking around the house and like I start moving in. And after I moved in, I sat there and then it hit me. This is the house that I saw. Right. This is the same house that I saw. Here's the wood floor. Here's the stairs. There's the kitchen in the same area. This is the same house, right? I wasn't necessarily trying to do anything, but I began with the end in mind without having any idea of how to get there. And I think going into the next point that I want to bring us into, because we're kind of at that point, is how do we do this on the macro level, right? Why is that so important to realize at the point we are in our transition in the world? Because so many people right now are honing in on their idea to the fruition of the world they want to see. Everything will be better if you just vote blue. Everything will be better if you just vote red, right? Yeah. There's this divide, or like I'm voting the middle party because that's the best one. And no matter what one you choose, everybody's focusing on all the wrong pieces rather than how to get there, because they're focusing on the wrong pieces. They're blaming everybody else for why their piece, their way of living isn't true. The world is like it is because you are not aligned with me. So if we let go of that and we focus on what it is in the end that I want to see, and I'm going to let Creator pull us towards that in the right way. I'm going to take the divinely guided action steps that's going to get me to the place in the world that I want to see. And when we unite under that idea, that's going to be the thing that gets us to that outcome. When we unite you under the idea that you and me both want peace, you and me both want love, you and me both want equality, you and me both want this world to be what it can be, not necessarily what it is. And so we hold this vision of this world of light. And when we hold that together in this space, no matter what it looks like, then we can start to transform things. And this goes back to the Maharishi effect. The Maharishi effect is a study, for those that don't know, where you have a group of 100 meditators, or it was 100 meditators, and I think in another study they did 7,000. But in the city that they meditated, the very act of meditating and unification under that changed the crime rate of the city. It went down to 30% of what it was. And they repeated the study over and over again. And Lynn McTaggart is another one who did these global studies of manifestation. So we had everybody manifest peace. They focused on peace. And when people shared their interpretation and their visions, they all had a different aspect. It wasn't necessarily unified. It wasn't the same exact thing, but their collective consciousness actually changed the war that was going on somewhere over, I forgot where exactly it was, Sri Lanka, I think it was. There was a war in Sri Lanka, and they actually changed the war. All the violence just dropped for the period of time that they were manifesting. And shortly after that, I think it ended. So they focused not on the specifics on who won or who was right or anything like that. They focused on that place of love and sharing that love and sharing that harmony. And that's what changed the outcome. So if we can collectively do that and collectively agree to do that, no matter what our differences are, we're going to get to where we want to be a whole lot sooner.
Can I please touch on that really? I'm literally like I'm jumping out of my body right now.
I can see that.
Okay, so I'm with like 80% of that, 100%. So then I just have a couple questions so we can do the math on this, because I like to be objective and use math. So we have to start with a couple things. First, can we all agree that we understand the primary colors? And that there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Can we agree that 396 is the root, and that's the red chakra, and white is the indigo is up here, right? So a higher vibrational space, if we're just looking at the spectrum, no matter what, is the thing. And in alchemy, if it's a rule for one thing, it's a rule for everything. So if we're looking at just the three primary colors, red, blue, yellow, right? And again, we can look at, we want peace. That's great. But we still have to look at the math of what's going on. I can say I don't want to bleed, and if I stab my hand, it's going to happen. Certain things are just, they're the way that they are. So if we're looking at this in this math, and what you said was like, whether I want to go red or I want to go blue. Well, if I'm yellow, if I go through red, that makes me orange. If I go through blue, that makes me purple. Which one is a higher resonance? So we can have peace here or here, but one is still going to be higher up on the spectrum. So peace from the Empire in Star Wars, the peace of the Iron Fist and everyone will die, so we have peace, is not the same type of peace that we have from meditation.
That's an excellent and perfect point to the little gap that I failed to fill in.
Perfect.
So that little gap is what's required in order for this to work. And that's the surrender of what your ideals are and what you believe to be true.
Right, but that comes down to the knowledge of self. So there's a lot of people but that also comes down to what James was talking about with like the knowledge of self. So if there's some people out there that'll go, I want peace, because that's what sounds good on the outside, but on the inside, that's not resonant either. So again, it has to come down to like, is this really what you want, or is it because that's what everyone says that you want? And so this is the pull away of I need to know me first. So
that's where I was coming from with the whole inception, is recognizing, where do you really stand? Because again, there's a totality. So if you're someone who's here for chaos, I guess just be here for chaos, but you'll be more potent if you know that's what you're here for. And I've run into some individuals who are like, I'm a wrecking ball, quote. And I'm like, damn, you are a wrecking ball. All right, but that person being so certain about their wrecking ball, I was like, well, shit. I mean, shoot, snap, whatever. I'm not here to be a wrecking ball. So if I'm going to be the opposite, then let me be that all the way, right? And so then that makes me think of Star Wars and a bunch of other things. But like, cool. So then I'm not hating on that person for being certain in what they're being, because they've also given me some understanding, which this connects to you know, what Brandon was speaking to with his experience at the soul level as well, for me.
There's also another thing that happens too.
Yes.
Under the law of one, when we all unite under a unified directive, no matter whose distortion is going on, it's going to be superseded by the collective unification.
Yeah.
So if this person believes this way and this person believes this way, but the collective right here is all focused together on the same thing, that will supersede everything, because that's where we're unified on.
Sure.
So
And
on those levels where the individual hasn't quite cleared out their closet, it's going to take, it's going to be less of an impact on the overall manifestation.
and that's part of the issue right now.
What's that?
And that's part of the issue right now in the collective whole. We're so fragmented because of the external influence, let's say, right? How can you want peace if you don't have peace within your life? How can you want love if you don't embody love in your life? It starts with us. Whatever you want to see in the world, you have to embody that. And I think the universe will actually test you. Is that really what you want? And it's the unification of that frequency overall that becomes the unifying collective, as you said, Brendan. Absolutely. And when I talked about the specificity of manifestation, I really was thinking about the end. I think of the end as the result as a whole. I didn't really care about the stuff in between. I mean, there are many things that I've wanted to manifest, and I was very specific about at the end what it felt like. But in the end, I got a version of that because that's what it was serving me at the highest. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to ground out a little bit.
Sure. So we're speaking to the law of correspondence again, you know, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where that knowledge of self comes into play, because as you get to know yourself, or you get to, if you're relating it to yourself, if you're looking at the outside and understanding that that's a reflection of you, or you decide to work on the inside, then it's going to play itself out. And then there's just the observation and the intention, you know, and the action within the whole thing.
You are all a reflection of myself. Think about that.
Thank you for bringing that up, brothers.
Yeah. And so look, this knowledge of self thing, I got to at least tell one of these stories. So listen, this was like one of the most amazing, tangible, over evident, and it was all come to Portland. So we were running Miss Tech down in Phoenix, and I was like, babe, I don't feel like I can be me here. I don't have the community I want. I feel like I've absorbed all the waters of nutrients that Phoenix has to offer, and now I'm just stunted in my growth, and I cannot continue to get the fruit I need to share with the world. We got to get out of here. We got to go somewhere. And so we came up to Portland to visit, and in just 5 days of being here, I was like, oh, this is it. I feel it. I feel the vibe walking downtown. Like, look at all the life everywhere. Everything's so green, and this is it. And so in 2 weeks, we went back to Phoenix, and in 2 weeks, we had packed every single thing up and got a U-Haul and drove up without even having a house, apartment, anything ready to go. At this point, I was fully in recognition to whatever degree at the time of knowledge of self of I am this divine being. And we can create these things, and the universe is conspiring in my favor all the time because I'm not doing anything for me. I'm following whatever this vision is and just doing what the voices tell me. Let's go. And so we get up here to Portland, and we're staying in a hotel. We've got our U-Haul out in the parking lot. We had to unhitch it so we could go around apartment house hunting. Well, at the time, everyone was moving to Portland. So you either had an insane deposit or there was a waiting list. So by day 5, I'm still, it's great. Everything is, we're not finding the right one. It's okay. My wife on day 5 is like, babe, I thought you said this was going to work out. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I wasn't sure. And it doesn't seem like it was going to work out. And I'm all, well, that's why. Like, you said it was okay, but you have this little like smidgen of doubt. We can't complete the circuit with doubt. Like, I need you to say with me, like, it's going to work out. It's okay. We already have our place. Like, but to know that, right? You have to know. You can't, come on, baby, just no hope. We can't have hope here. Okay. It has to be an understanding, a knowing. Okay. And she was like, okay, it's going to work. I'm like, no, relax, take a deep breath and like feel it into your heart and say with me. And she's like, okay. And we were holding hands. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I swear to you, and this is what I love about my wife not being all the way into all this stuff, because she likes to prove me wrong. So if she agrees, this definitely happened, right?
Yeah.
And so like within moments, I get a phone call, and it's this kid that used to work for me in Phoenix at one of our kiosks, and he's like, "Halo, hey man, look, I just graduated, and I need to come work for you and get a job. Otherwise, my mom says I have to move to Portland and live with her." And I was like, "Dude, I'm in Portland right now. Move up to Portland and work with me up here." He's like, "Wait, you're in Portland? What part of town you guys living in?" And I was like, "I don't know yet. Like, we had no idea. We've had such a hard time finding a spot, but it'll show up." He goes, "Dude, get out of here. My mom's a manager at these apartments. Give her a call." The apartments were 2 blocks away from where we were staying in all of Portland. We literally drove over, didn't even no application, nothing, just signed the paperwork, got our keys, and ended up being like a 2-bedroom for $1,000, right? So to continue on us, and again, real short, I fly my dad out a couple months later, and like a week before he comes out, we're in downtown Portland, and they have these huge, amazing architecture structures, beautiful buildings, huge like garage-sized windows, lofts, the whole everything. And we're at this one where there's these pillars with these goddess faces carved in it, and up above through the window you can see a basketball court. And I was like, "Babe, you know what? I think we're gonna have to get an office downtown in Portland. Like, I just love the vibe. I want to feel. I'm not saying this exact one, but like we got to do this sometime. Like, I don't know when, but it's gonna happen." And she's like, "Okay." My dad comes out to visit. "Son, how come you guys don't have an office yet? You look like you're killing it." "Well, I've got some saved. As soon as you go home, I've been kind of looking at some places, but I didn't want to do it while you're here." He's like, "Man, you better go." I was like, "I'll show you when we get home." I log into my email to pull it up. I got an email from friends of mine that used to live in Phoenix, in the shop that I had my healing center in, and they had moved to Portland like a month before we did. And they had just sent me an email, "Halo, business looks like it's been really great. We just acquired some property and we'd love to have you come share office space with us. You want to come check it out?" On everything I go down there, it was the building that me and my wife were standing in front of. It was the exact one with the basketball court and everything. And so it was just, again, one of these things to where just, I know we're supposed to have these things. I don't know how, I don't know why. I don't even care about any versions, but we're just going to keep moving, and the universe will go, "Oh, well, here you go. Great job." And that's what it is. And that's why again, the non-specifics have been the magic for me every single time. It's just, it's going to happen. I don't know what we need. What we need is going to happen. And then it's there and it's tangible.
I feel like these unfoldments need to be heard. Like, it's really, I just muted so I could scream. And I unmuted. But like, these unfoldments need to be heard because it seems fantastical to people until it's like breaking that mile, right? This is what this is about. So thank you, for sharing. And I've experienced certain things like that on the journey. And so it's nice to be moving in that way where people can hit you with the 20 questions of like, "Okay, what's this going to do? And how do you know? And how do you know?" And you can just be like, "It's going to happen." Cool.
Yeah.
So I heard everything. I love the conversations. So let's break it down to the practical level. People have heard now 2 hours of manifestation. What do you guys think as far as practical goes? What would you advise?
Sex magic.
I would agree with that, Halo, and yet that's a whole new 2-hour episode. So let's do that next time. To answer your question,
I'll be taking notes.
I think it's having our thoughts, words, and deeds congruent, just like Halo said about his beloved. That has to be congruent. And the knowledge that the tools that we use to manifest are our thoughts, feelings, attitudes, beliefs, desires, and expectations. There's those 6 things kind of surround and form a cube around our 3D reality. And so when we are in congruence ourselves and our intent is aligned with divine intent, we're now empowered. And there's one last thing I want to say. We talked about hope, we talked about belief, we talked about the knowing, but there's actually a vibration above knowing. And that vibration is, we know so deeply that it doesn't even cross our minds that it might not happen. An example of that is the sun rising in the east, which we all kind of know is maybe not a sure thing, but in our world, we don't think every morning, "Golly, I hope that sun rises because it's really going to warm my skin and going to give energy to the plants. We're going to get all that photon energy. It's going to be amazing." It doesn't actually cross our mind that the sun might not rise. And when our belief is to that level of, we can't even conceive that it might not happen, that we won't get that right place to live, at that level, is when Halo, I believe, it goes, and you have that place to live. And you've got it. All you needed was that connect circuit of your beloved.
Yep.
So that's what I have to add.
Yeah, man.
Supreme
Did you write down that beginning part? Oh,
certainty.
real quick, guys. I just need to know, because if not, I got to go back and watch it. But that first, with your 6 things that you had and everything.
I'll write it out. I teach a course on this, and I
Oh,
teach a course called Divine Commerce, and we talk about manifestation. I'll write it out and I'll send it to you all.
Jeez, that would be amazing for a healing circle.
David, can people buy this? Where can people get this?
I got a book in process. I'll give it to you all, and maybe it'll get published that way. It's something we all need to have. I'll give it to you all, and we can go from there. But I am also putting together the book and putting together the course, and doing that online as well.
Well, as Brendan and all you all know, we are creating for lack of better words, a healing circle. There will be a website that will come out in the very near future for all to connect and to partake in. You know, Halo will have something, Ez will have something, I will have something, Brendan will have something, James will have something. So everyone's invited to contribute and to make this a global community, because we're all in the service of others. So thank you.
Thank you, Zissis.
Oh, I think also this will be something great to do in person in both locations where David's located at, and as well as something in Tulum. So I'm down to venture back into the world of the States.
Yeah, why not come out to Tulum, brother?
Like
Yes. You know what?
I already been talking to the wife. I already hit up my dude from Mr. Canada.
Mr. Tulum. Mr. What's the M sign? I'm before I get capped up out here. I'm gonna take it easy. We'll figure that out.
Yeah. And whenever we get off this, there's another thing I'd like to talk to you guys about as well after seeing this last event. And that was weird. Was a 5D, but don't talk right now. Hey, I'm too busy to talk to. It was just a weird thing so much that I was like, man, I was coming to soak in the resonance of all this love and everything, and I was like, I gotta go. It wasn't good. So it's very refreshing to be with you gentlemen after what I just came from, and the contrast is beyond astounding. It's such a more flourishing version of energy and heart space, and I really appreciate it. Like it re-stamps the authenticity for all of you and your level of integrity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the same. Love you all,
brother. Love you, brother.
I love you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's do a festival here in Tulum.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. That's what I'm talking.